bad reviews don't mean anything compared to the silence of making a movie and having barely anybody respond to it.
Welcome to the Slamdance First Film Podcast. I'm Michael Gallagher.
And I'm Jana Gallagher.
And we are here to guide you through the making of your first feature film.
There's so many different ways in to make your first film. We were really interested in talking to people who have done it and see the similarities and differences and shed light on the process to demystify it for you.
Today on the show, we're talking with Azazel Jacobs, the director behind such indie films as TERRI, The Lovers, French Exit, and His Three Daughters.
His first feature film that was made in 2003 called Nobody Needs to Know.
He's so open about how this film led to his other films, but didn't necessarily turn out the way he had envisioned.
Some filmmakers only want to talk about the good things in their career. They only want to talk about how long their standing ovation was. What's great about Azazel is he really opens up about his frustrations.
We're really grateful for Azazel's honesty. I think it'll help a lot of people.
So without further ado, please enjoy our conversation with Azazel Jacobs.
Hello, my name is Azazel Jacobs. My first film was called Nobody Needs to Know. I made it between the years 2000 2002. I was between 28 and 30, living in Los Angeles, going to school at AFI, shooting on weekends and summer, and then the film took place in New York City, so I shot during the summers in New York, trying to help it all together. I came from New York City. My father's a filmmaker, experimental films that he's been making really since the late 50s. So films were a huge part of my life growing up. I made a short film at SUNY Purchase called KIRK and KERRY. It wound up going to Slamdance, and it won an award, Best Short Film, in 1997.
What would you say made you want to become a filmmaker in the first place?
I picked up a Super 8 camera and brought it to high school senior year and shot a film, on that one reel where you're not really editing. There was a sense of reflection and of self and of something that I could do. I was interested in it. I don't know. It was something I never questioned. And I still don't question. It just was on instinct that this is what I want to do. And this is satisfying something that I feel like I could do and feels essential for living for me.
KIRK and KERRY played at Slamdance. And now I'm just curious, any memories you have of your Slamdance experience?
So many memories. I think I could write down not only the days that I was there, the hours. Really began, I got a message from my roommate who was living in East Village. I was actually writing, which I think I was already trying to write. Yeah, I was already trying to write Nobody Needs to Know. And I got this message that, hey, you got into Sundance. And I got excited and started telling everybody. And then I called him back. And then I was like, tell me what the letter read. And he's like, well, it's not a letter. It's a package. I haven't opened it yet. And it turned out to be just a brochure for Sundance. So I had gone from being kind of completely crushed to then getting this wonderful, amazing call from Slamdance. And that really got me so excited. I didn't really understand anything about the business of film. So I wound up recruiting a friend of mine, Aaron Armstrong, and another friend, Katie, at the time. And we wound up driving out to Utah, to Park City, with our snowboards. We were at that age, I think I was 23 years old, but I just didn't even think that you needed to get a place once you got there. So we showed up and we immediately wound up just kind of finding a group of people. There was this amazing festival that was also going on called Slamdance across the street. And they allowed whoever wanted to crash there. So that's where I spent my first night. I also had not a lot of money. We didn't have a lot of money, and we wanted to spend the money that we did on snowboarding. And so finding out the expense of the food was a huge thing, but then wounding up talking to a waiter at the Treasure Mountain and where the festival was happening and kind of explaining what we were there. He just liked us and he wound up feeding us. So there was this long list of magical, amazing moments. I remember there was a really big to-do about the film Pieces, that the Russo brothers were there. They brought their whole extended family. They were like rolling 50 deep, and just kind of seeing that was amazing. I remember that Soderbergh was there showing Schizopolis, and that was just interesting to get a few words with him. He had already had this kind of huge Hollywood success, but he was here with something much smaller and much stranger, and that I found extremely inspiring. And then it ended with complete surprise of winning a festival, first festival I'd ever won. When you get these awards, especially at that age, it just felt like this big green light to keep going. I still have that plaque from Slamdance. I remember really, really well coming back to all these voicemail messages from all sorts of people, crazy messages asking me to send video of my film out to Disney and all these places, and making the copies and sending it out to tons of people, and then only hearing back really from one person, this woman named Allison Dickey. And she called, and she's a producer, and she was good friends with Nicole Busto, who was there at Slamdance and liked my movie and gave it to Allison. And Allison, I remember her calling me and talking about how much she cared for the film and what I was up to. And she's like, my husband's an actor as well. His name is John C. Reilly. He's been this and that. And I was like, no, I don't know his name. Not only did I stay in touch with Allison through that, but also Nicole Arbusto became my casting director. And then Allison Dickey would keep showing up at my movies, including Nobody Needs to Know. And ultimately, I got to meet John through her at the Mama's Man Festival premiere. And that led to her producing TERRI with John in it as well. So that was the beginning of that whole film happening, really, in a lot of ways.
And for those who haven't seen Nobody Needs to Know, can you tell us what it's about, what your intention was with that film from the start?
It's a few stories, but it focuses on one actress who, in audition, is asked to die on camera, and she says no to this director. And the moment that she says no, she becomes a star. The more that she says no, the more that people want to know her, the more popular she becomes, the more she retreats to her home and to herself, the more fashionable she becomes, to the point that people are selling the kind of clothes. She starts just wearing her pajamas. Oh, that's funny. That's TERRI too. I didn't realize that. I was writing Nobody Needs to Know for years, over and over and over. I just did not know how to write a feature-length script. I just did not understand how to tell a feature. And now I look back at that time, and like I said, I really felt like I was just learning how to write, and that's a great way of learning how to write, even though it was extremely frustrating at the time.
What was your overall budget or schedule for Nobody Needs to Know?
Yeah, I think we had about 25,000 that I was able to really just ask so many friends to come in with bits of money that I would then continue to do.
Was the crew for Nobody Needs to Know, were those your peers at the time?
Yeah. Yep. My production designer, Linda Sena, my cinematographer, Danielle Andrade, and the producer, Peggy Wykes. These were all people that I met at AFI.
So it was a true labor of love in that way. It was getting your friends together, your peers, and saying, hey guys, we're making a movie this summer. Come on, let's do this.
Yeah, I think so. The thing too, there's a sense, I think, with your first feature that you could be a genius. And so the people are kind of throwing in until you actually make your film, and then they kind of scramble when they realize you're not. There was a sense, all right, this could be really, really a big deal too. The very few people that saw the film hated the film. I could count the people on one hand, including myself. My good friend Jake Perlin, who programs the Metrograph and has been a big supporter since KIRK and KERRY, is one of those people. Like I could tell you the address of each person that liked my first feature. It changed me in a lot of ways. It was a film that I lost a lot of friendships over, as well as cemented some. But I also think I was super impassioned and was just like very convincing that this was going to be an amazing film. And that could have been part of the reason too, that there was people that were rooting or investing their hopes in terms of making a film that would change or help their lives as well.
And I think that is actually a really interesting point you bring up, the passion, because I feel like that kind of, with every film, that's how you get the tribe together, right? Do you feel like you still have to lead with passion to assemble the team?
Always. That's the number one thing I'm looking for, is hunger. even working with Michelle Pfeiffer, finding people that have proven themselves over and over again that are still hungry has become the thing for me.
You shot the film on DV?
Yeah, we shot it on a mini DV PAL. I had written that film to be shot entirely with surveillance cameras. And I was doing all these tests with surveillance cameras that I was buying on Canal Street. And then when it came down to we have actors and we have a crew and this and that, and that it's so unstable, the surveillance cameras. God, I think I really fucked up there. Like, I would have loved to have shot that film the way that I intended. So maybe that's another thing for filmmakers, is just like to hold on to the riskier part of it, you know? Like that's something I wouldn't do today. I was obsessed with surveillance cameras and this idea, this vantage point that they gave, that they were security cameras and that we feel them and we don't feel them. And this idea of telling the whole story, which probably would look really dated now, but at that time was extremely exciting. It felt like something I hadn't seen before. We wound up shooting with these PD-150s and kind of running a surveillance camera through them sometimes and turning it black and white. And then ultimately, where the big chunk of money came was transferring it to 35, because I really love this idea of mixing technology with film. And I wanted to see, like, it felt like an important part of the story was for it to be projected on film. And that was something I was able to work out a deal with eFilm, which were nice enough to do it and let me pay over 3 years on like a layaway plan for that transfer.
What was the tone of the set? What was the feeling making it?
I love the film. I was hoping to change the world with that film, and that's not my aim anymore. I wanted to take a completely new language. I wanted the French New Wave. I wanted fame. I wanted all these things that are not my aims anymore. But it failed at all those things. What did it give me? I mean, it gave me a real experience. It gave me, I think in some ways it's been such a huge blessing to have a film straight out of the gate not be liked, because it lessened this pressure of having to repeat myself. I see filmmakers that make great successes with their first films, and I think of how trapped they get. And the idea of like not being able to build up, but only possibly losing what they've already created seems terrible to me. After making Nobody Needs to Know, there was this no sense that anybody wanted to see a film from me. And that wound up becoming incredibly freeing for the film that I wound up making. There's nothing like feeling like no one has eyes on you. Bad reviews, they don't mean anything compared to the silence of making a movie and having barely anybody respond to it. The heartache from Nobody Needs to Know that I'll always remember and I keep with me, that I can't complain about a bad review. It's like silence is so much worse.
And so how do you as a filmmaker in that moment garner the courage to keep going? Obviously you have stories to tell and you have something to say, but what is that propels you towards the next film?
It was the sense that I could no longer ask people for favors after Nobody Needs to Know. I couldn't ask people to donate their time. I had to figure out a way to make the next one with asking for the least amount from others if I wasn't going to pay them. I used that card up. And so I wound up making the second film called The GoodTimesKid with my close friend Gerardo Naranjo, who also went to AFI, had made a feature called Malachance that also people didn't like, and he barely finished and barely screened it. But we were able to connect together, and we wound up writing the next film all for not only locations that we knew, but we decided, okay, well, in this case, we should shoot it and we'll crew it. And actually, you know what, we'll act in it, even though none of we're not interested in being actors. It was a way to insulate it completely and make this film that was completely ours with no other eyes on it. Nobody cared about it. We wound up, just shooting in our home. My then girlfriend, now wife Diaz, played the third part of the trilogy. We're able to get some equipment from AFI. Me, Diaz, and Gerardo all put in $3,000. We made it for $10,000. We would get short ends. So everything in some ways going from us making a movie of asking for favors and just trying it, asking and asking and asking, made me go the opposite way. the next time. Also, making a feature without knowing when you're ever going to finish it made me very anxious with the second film to just know the last day of shooting. So when I started the Good Times Kid, to go, okay, we're starting here and in 12 days we're done, which was very different than with Nobody Needs to Know, which I was shooting over 2 years and editing for all that whole time.
And I see kind of throughout your work, you have this amazing ability to turn a scene too and find this humor in this darkness. You really have honed throughout your career. That's brilliant.
Oh, that's nice. I just feel when I look back, I think I was scared in a lot of ways. I think that I got better as we were shooting. There's no regrets in terms of making that film or even the way that it came out or that it was received, because that was the film that I think through attempting things and in my eyes, not succeeding in them, encouraged me in some strange way. Nobody Needs to Know premiered in Rotterdam, which was a huge, huge deal for me. That first screening, I emptied out the theater. I mean, within 15 minutes, it was painful. It was so painful. I ended that night really just kind of crying in Diaz's lap. Couldn't believe that people couldn't sit through the film.
You were saying as a director, you had a lot of fear around that. Is there any advice you would give to kind of a young director on set to overcome that initial fear of being in that situation?
I think it comes down to having confidence that people are there for you and people are there for what you wrote or what you're dreaming of, and that any which way that you can express and remind yourself of that's to help you pursue your vision. I think I got doubtful. I think I got scared that people weren't seeing something that I was seeing. And maybe that was true, but I stopped seeing it. And that was an issue. I was growing through that whole time. It's hard for me not to look back at it in terms of just seeing how I've changed. And then a lot of it has been a reaction to go the opposite way.
I think it's really great of you to be so open and honest about this experience, because I think oftentimes the film business, entertainment in general, there's a veneer that people put over their experiences. They're only talking about the positive. They only focus on how amazing something is or all the cool accolades, etc. I think to share an experience where there were walkouts or negative reaction or heartbreak, I think those are really important because that is very relatable to, I think, every single filmmaker. It's just whether or not people choose to share those experiences. And
you should also know that just coming from making a short film that won at a festival that got really nice things said about it, right? How Hartley was extremely supportive of it. Jonas Mekas was Amy Taubman loved it. Like, I got some amazing response from heroes and just the people that I just looked up to. And then Nobody Needs to Know. It got rejected from Slamdance. I won the short, but it didn't get in. And that's the reality. And I understand it. And look, the Good Times Kid changed my life as a filmmaker. Like, that definitely was the beginning, if we're going to say, of my path in terms of being able to support myself as a filmmaker completely. But the Good Times Kid never would have happened without Nobody Needs to Know.
Exactly. And I think from these kind of formative early experiences when things don't go the way we thought they would go, I think a really amazing work can come out of that. Because like you said, the expectations from the world, or even just the ones you put on yourself, are lowered, and it kind of frees you up so you can be more experimental, be more bold, try things and say, to hell with them, I'm going to go for this. I think there's something really kind of punk rock and cool about that.
I think that it was also maybe necessary for my ego then too. I think I was aiming for a masterpiece, and that's not anything I would think of doing again. I think I really wanted to make a perfect movie.
That's really nice, because as opposed to being goal-oriented, so to speak, you just give over to the story and you take it step by step and realize what the story needs, as opposed to thinking about the end result.
That's right. That's right. And if there's anything that I've learned with each film now, just to be there in that moment, to be present and realize, oh, this is actually the only time where I kind of really know what I'm doing with my life is while I'm making work. And maybe that had to do too with just that age that I was at and not being as mature, trying to still find myself. I have no idea. I do have this fantasy that someday, which I'm sure I'll never do, going back to Nobody Needs to Know and recutting and seeing the film. Is there another film in there that I was trying to express? I know I won't do it, but I do believe that what I'm still trying to express today is in there, and I may be able to see it more clearly now.
Talk about the transition point a little bit more from Nobody Needs to Know to the Good Times Kid, and maybe some of the lessons that you learned on Nobody Needs to Know that you brought into Good Times Kid.
It's a lesson of learning how to control whatever you can control it. Whatever means that you have that are in your hands, use them. It's all ways of just trying to insulate so that you can really experiment rather than navigate all these other impulses or desires or whatever it is that's coming from other people.
What was that experience like in going into the Good Times Kid?
I had a thick skin by then. I had a really, really thick skin. My first review for Nobody Needs to Know after Rotterdam went, nobody needs to see, nobody needs to know. That's how it began. And it was about 2.5 pages of not only how bad a film it was, but also how little of a future I had. I remember reading it to my father, and my dad goes, well, there's only one answer for a review like that. I was like, yeah, what's that? He's like, well, it's a lead pipe to the guy's head. And if you're not going to do that, keep your head down and keep making films.
It's great advice.
And so that's what I did. I got really thick skin after that first one. I mean, that first review cut so deep. Oh, it got me so good. And the scar tissue healed it. The work is what matters.
And that reviewer is first in line for your new film.
Oh, I got a better story about that reviewer. I wound up at a festival and I saw that dude. And he wound up being a judge at the festival that Mama's Man was in competition with. And that fucker had to hand me an award for best film.
Full circle.
And I heard from the other judges, he got outvoted. It was just one of those great, film moments that happens rarely.
That's perfect.
Beautiful. If you could remake Nobody Needs to Know today, would you?
Would I tell that story again, or would I go through that experience again? I mean, is this story still interesting to me? Yes. I had a great teacher at Purchase that, I'm sure this is something he paraphrased, but when we all got to show our first short film at Purchase, he said, well, I hope you like that film because that'll be the rest of your life that you'll be remaking that movie. And I definitely see that in a lot of ways with Nobody Needs to Know as part of that. I don't know if I would remake it because I feel like I have. I feel like I still am telling a lot of what that story was trying to talk about in terms of the contrast and push and pull of different people and of different tones, different textures. I think French Exit is a great example of me still chasing after that same mix of how people and how film can be pushed together and pulled apart and then find the truth in telling stories because of addressing the magic and the mechanics of filmmaking.
When you decide to make a film now, what is the spark that kicks it off for you? What is it that you're looking for in telling stories these days?
I'm still trying to go the opposite direction of the last film. I kind of use that more or less as a template of saying okay, where can I go in another area that I haven't gone before that excites me and worries me? I think really the things that jump out at me is that I'm looking to go in another direction. I hold on to these experiences. Each of these films feel like home movies to me. I want to keep telling that story. I want to keep contributing to this diary by going to different areas that I'm having different experiences.
And what advice would you give to somebody making their first feature film?
One of the things that I think could be important is to put down your aims and your intentions for the film and as a filmmaker overall, because I think that, you write down, I want to screen it at festivals, or I want to finish a film or whatever it is. I think that it's really nice to have that as your life shifts. I'm hoping a lot of filmmakers, young filmmakers would write that they make a film that's theirs, that they're going to care about, that they can be proud of it, warts and all. And if that's true, you succeed in that one thing for yourself, then everything else is other. You're really golden. It's yours, you've succeeded. And the sense of feeling like, oh, well, now I need to get into this festival. I need to get distributed. All these other things become secondary compared to really achieving what your original intention was. I want to tell this story. I got to tell this story. I got to tell it my way, or the only way that I knew how.
We like to end the show with a fun lightning round of questions. So buckle up. Here we go. Favorite movie snack?
Nothing. Oh, no, yeah, nothing. Nothing. Nothing.
Don't eat during movies.
Yeah. I mean, I will, but I don't like it.
The first indie film you remember watching?
Stranger Than Paradise, for sure. Oh my God, I did not know if something like that could exist.
Favorite guilty pleasure movie?
I don't know if it's a guilty pleasure. I love this Barry Primus film called Mistress. It's so much about making your first film, just trying to make a film. Oh my God, I hope the listeners watch that film. Barry Primus, the actor, did this wonderful film in, I think, 85, 86. Martin Landau and De Niro's in there and Danny Aiello. And that's a film that I go to all the time when I want to remember just that things don't change no matter where or what film you're doing, what number film you're doing.
Name a movie that maybe you're embarrassed to say you've never seen.
I mean, I haven't seen Titanic. I haven't seen a Batman film since Michael Keaton, I guess. Is this all? I don't know. I'm not embarrassed.
You're proud.
I would say I know very little Tchaikovsky films. I feel like I probably have faked it a lot that I have.
Name a movie that more people need to see.
Fatso. Anne Bancroft directed. As far as I know, it's her only film that's directed. I think I looked up that she did it short. Mel Brooks produced it. Dom DeLuise is in it. Oh my God, it's a brilliant, genius film. If you can get your hands on Fatso, it's just it's a wonder.
Name a movie line or quote that you use in your everyday life.
I mean, lately it's been "I'm smart" from The Godfather.
And last but not least, what is the meaning of life?
Fuck, that's a fun question, lightning question. I can't tell you what the meaning is. I can tell you that this past year has definitely shown me how much I value film and what it does for me. And actually, it turns out that going to a theater is a huge part of that. But I don't think I fully understand how much, especially somebody that doesn't have children, that this is what I live for. I wouldn't say it's the meaning of life, but it's given my life meaning.
Today's episode was edited by Daniel Angarita, music by Kevin MacLeod, produced by Peter Baxter, QC by Max Brown and Tara Blossom. Special thanks to Paul Rackman and the entire Slamdance team. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.